The sun had barely risen in Lagos when national media stations across Africa began to buzz. President Bola Tinubu to deliver major address on Africa's future. By noon, millions were watching live from homes, offices, bus parks, even classrooms paused to tune in. Inside the studio, tension thickened the air. Cameras panned to a somber Tinubu seated behind a shining desk, lights casting shadows on his furrowed brow. Beside him, folders, briefing notes, and one sealed envelope with a bold red wax stamp. The host's voice rang out, "Mr. President, we understand this just arrived minutes ago. From Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso." Tinubu nodded slowly. "Yes," he said, his voice low. He reached for the envelope, eyes narrowing as he broke the seal. A whisper passed through the studio as he pulled out a handwritten letter. As he began reading silently, something strange happened. His hands began to tremble. His lips parted, but no words came. Then he looked up, straight into the camera. And in that moment, everyone watching could feel something was wrong. But no one was ready for what came next. Tinubu cleared his throat, voice suddenly raw. "What you're about to hear," he began slowly, "is not a political speech. It is a message. A message from a young African man who refuses to give up on this continent." He looked down again at the letter. His fingers gripped the edges like it was slipping from his hands. "Dear Brother Tinubu," he read, "I write to you not as a soldier, not even as a president. I write as a son of Africa, tired of watching her be broken, divided, and sold." The studio fell silent. Traoré's words continued. "They gave us flags, but not freedom. Independence, but not dignity. Brother, I see the weight you carry. But know this, we are not alone. Africa is rising, and it begins with truth." By the third paragraph, Tinubu's voice cracked. He paused, wiped his eyes, and when he looked up again, his face was wet with tears. "Ibrahim," he whispered into the mic, "what are you doing to me?" The host reached for a tissue. One camera zoomed in. The video feed was still live. And across the continent, people were beginning to cry too. "Ibrahim speaks," Tinubu continued, his voice almost shaking, "of a dream they tried to bury." He took a deep breath. "My grandfather died with this dream. My father gave up on it. But I refused to die knowing that we handed Africa away like spare change." The president looked around the studio, then back at the letter. "Africa was never poor. We were made poor. We were never broken. We were broken apart." At this moment, an elderly woman watching from a village in Ogun State dropped her broom and began sobbing. A boy in Kinshasa hugged his father. A woman in Dakar whispered, "Who is this man, Traoré?" As Tinubu read, something strange happened. He began to nod, slowly, deeply. "Ibrahim's words remind me of what I forgot," he said, "of why we fight, why we serve, why we must not sleep while Africa bleeds." The live chat on YouTube exploded. "This is the speech of the century. I'm crying. We need this man." And far away in Ouagadougou, Captain Traoré sat watching, silently, because he knew the message had landed. The real question now was, what would Tinubu do next? The silence in the studio felt louder than any speech. Tinubu wiped his face again. He wasn't reading anymore. He was staring into the distance like a man who had just remembered something he had buried for years. Then he spoke. "Ibrahim's letter reminded me of something I saw as a young boy," he said, voice shaking. "I saw my uncle return from prison, broken, for speaking up during the military era. He said, 'They fear our truth more than our guns.' I never forgot that." He picked up the letter again, voice cracking as he continued reading. Mr. President, our children are drowning in oceans built by the West and paved by our silence. We don't need pity. We need courage. I write to you not to shame, but to awaken." The camera zoomed in, and right then, the President of Nigeria, a man who once ruled the economic giant of Africa, whispered something no one expected. "I think he's right." The host leaned back, stunned, and far beyond the studio, social media erupted. South Africa is listening. Kenya hears this. Traoré is not just a soldier. He's Africa's conscience. But what would Tinubu do next? The room remained frozen. Tinubu turned toward the camera again, this time holding the letter high. "He didn't call me Your Excellency. Not Sir. Not President." Tinubu's voice trembled. "He called me brother. Brother Tinubu, you and I both know the weight of leadership. But true leaders do not sit while their people beg. They rise, even when their legs are shaking." Tinubu paused. He looked to his left, to where his Minister of Foreign Affairs sat off camera. Then to his right, where two aides whispered nervously. "Do we still have a soul?" Tinubu asked aloud. One of the producers dropped a headset. A technician covered her mouth. People watching across Africa were now standing in living rooms, holding back tears. The president's voice grew louder. "They will say I am weak for crying. Let them. But if feeling this pain is weakness, then I pray every African leader weeps before their people." Suddenly, his hand slammed the desk. "I want to speak with Traoré. On air. Tonight." The host blinked. "Tonight?" "Yes, I want him to hear my heart, not my politics." Across the continent, hearts beat faster. Was this really happening? Within 2 hours, the network's producers scrambled. Wires were pulled, satellites adjusted. Calls raced through embassies, and then it happened. A split screen appeared on the live feed. On the left, Bola Tinubu in Lagos, red-eyed and solemn. On the right, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, seated calmly in Ouagadougou, his military jacket neatly buttoned, the Burkina Faso flag behind him. The crowd outside the Nigerian studio could be heard chanting, "Africa! Africa!" Tinubu took a long breath. "Ibrahim," he said softly, "thank you for your letter. You've shaken my spirit." Traoré nodded, respectful. "Sir," he replied, "I do not write to shame you. I write because I still believe in you." The moment hung heavy. Then Traoré added, "Africa will rise when our leaders stop performing strength and start choosing truth." Tinubu looked down, then back up. "You have my attention, brother." Even journalists in the studio wiped their eyes. The host whispered, "This is history." And suddenly this wasn't a broadcast anymore. It was a confession, a reckoning, and the beginning of something no one had expected. 2 leaders, 1 camera, and the beating heart of a continent waiting for change. As the live broadcast continued, Tinubu's eyes reflected a storm of memories. He spoke softly. "Ibrahim's letter did not just reach me. It reached my past." He recalled growing up in a Nigeria still healing from civil war scars and decades of military rule. "I saw families torn apart, dreams crushed under the boots of fear. The studio felt still, as if time itself was holding its breath. I was taught to believe that strength meant silence, that unity meant ignoring our pain," Tinubu confessed. "But what Ibrahim wrote, he reminded me that true strength is in our wounds, and how we heal them." Traoré's words echoed in the studio. "We cannot build a future on broken promises and hidden tears." Viewers across Africa whispered to themselves, some wiping tears from their eyes. Tinubu swallowed hard. "If we do not face our past, our future will never be free." For the first time, the audience saw not just a leader, but a man carrying the weight of an entire continent's history and its hope. The cameras captured a brief moment of silence before Tinubu's voice cracked again. "Ibrahim is fighting more than politics," he said. "He battles the ghosts of colonialism still haunting us all." He told the story of a young soldier in Burkina Faso, someone who chose peace over power, courage over comfort. "Ibrahim's courage is a beacon," Tinubu said. "He reminds us that Africa's real battle isn't between countries, it's within us." The studio lights softened as Tinubu's words lingered. "Do you know what it's like to fight for something invisible? To fight for respect, for dignity, for a chance to tell your own story?" The nation seemed to lean in closer. Traoré's vision of a united Africa was no longer a distant dream. It was a call to arms for the soul. And Tinubu, tears now flowing freely, admitted, "I have never seen a letter hold so much power." Tinubu's trembling hands unfolded the letter once more. "Here," he said, "is a promise written in blood and hope." He read aloud a final passage from Traoré's letter. "Brother Tinubu, we owe our children a continent where they don't have to cry for food, education, or justice. We owe Africa our best selves." The president's voice broke. "I promise today," he declared, "that I will not let this letter be the last message we share." He looked directly into the camera, tears streaming down his face. "This is not just Ibrahim's fight. It's ours. It's Africa's fight, and we will rise." The room erupted in applause. Millions watched, hearts pounding, eyes wet. Across the continent, a new hope was born, one letter at a time. The cameras captured the raw moment as Tinubu's voice softened. "This letter, it's more than words. It's a challenge, a call to courage." He paused, breathing deeply. "Ibrahim asked me a question I can't ignore. What will you do when the world watches and expects you to act?" Across Nigeria, viewers held their breath. Tinubu's eyes glistened as he admitted, "It's easy to lead when everything is smooth. Harder when the truth hurts." He looked at the letter again, tracing the familiar handwriting. Traoré's vision isn't just for Burkina Faso or Nigeria. It's for all of us. A united Africa, free from chains old and new. Suddenly, the president's voice cracked. "I don't have all the answers, but I have a promise. I will not walk away from this." Behind the scenes, producers whispered. Social media exploded with messages. Finally, a leader speaking our pain. This is what we prayed for. The moment felt like the first crack in a wall long built to divide. On screen, Tinubu shifted slightly, his expression vulnerable. "Let me tell you a secret," he said softly. "Ibrahim's letter reminded me of my own journey, the fear, the hope, the lonely nights." He shared a brief story, a childhood friend lost to violence, a promise made at a graveside to fight for a better Africa. "I felt I was alone in that fight," Tinubu said. "But Traoré's words told me I am not." The split screen showed Traoré nodding with a quiet smile. "For the first time in a long time," Tinubu continued, "I feel the bond of brothers who refuse to let Africa fall." Across the continent, people watching wiped tears away. "This is not just politics," Tinubu said. "This is heart. This is family." The studio lights dimmed slightly, as if to honor the weight of his confession. Viewers everywhere whispered, "Finally, two leaders with one soul." The room was heavy with silence as Tinubu closed the letter gently. "We have been given a chance," he said with newfound strength, "to rise together, to fight for our children's future." He turned to the camera, voice steady and clear. "This is not the end. It is the beginning." The broadcast cut to images of crowds gathering in cities across Africa, young people holding posters reading, "Unity, freedom, hope." Tinubu's final words echoed, "Captain Traoré and all of Africa, I hear you. We will no longer be silent. Our future is ours to build. The live feed ended, but the message had already spread like wildfire. Hashtags trended worldwide. Tears flowed freely. The continent was no longer waiting. It was waking up. The studio lights dimmed as Tinubu's voice softened. "This letter has brought to light the tears we hide behind pride and power," he said. "I have led a nation burdened by expectation, yet I never allowed myself to grieve openly." He paused, wiping a tear that slipped unbidden. Captain Traoré's words remind us that leaders are not immune to pain, that to show emotion is not weakness, it is courage. The live broadcast showed millions watching in silence, many with tears streaming down their faces. Tinubu continued, "Africa's pain is shared, across borders, across languages, across generations." Behind the scenes, a cameraman quietly recorded the genuine moment. Traoré's letter forced me to confront the weight of history and the hope we still carry. He looked into the camera, eyes shining with resolve. "This is the moment we must choose, despair or hope, division or unity, silence or truth." Across the continent, hearts stirred deeply. Many viewers whispered, "This is the Africa we've been waiting for." Tinubu straightened in his chair, his voice growing firmer. Captain Traoré's letter paints a vision, a new dawn for Africa, where children grow without fear, where leaders serve with honesty. He recited lines from the letter. "We owe our future a continent unchained by corruption, united by love." He spoke of the sacrifices made by ordinary Africans, the farmers, teachers, and mothers who keep hope alive despite hardships. Ibrahim's courage challenges us all to rise beyond politics and power struggles, Tinubu said. It asks us to build bridges instead of walls. The studio was silent, except for the steady rhythm of Tinubu's heartfelt words. His vision is not just a dream, it is a call to action. Across Africa, youth gatherings started to form, inspired by the broadcast. The dream of a united Africa was no longer distant. It was becoming real, and for many, tears of pain turned into tears of hope. Tinubu's voice grew stronger, filled with emotion and determination. Today, I make a promise to Africa and to Captain Ibrahim Traoré. He leaned forward, eyes burning with resolve. We will no longer accept the status quo. We will no longer allow corruption, division, and fear to rule us. He paused as the studio held its breath. We owe our children a continent where dreams are not crushed but nurtured, a place where every voice matters. The screen showed crowds across the continent, faces lit by candlelight, united in hope. Tinubu's words echoed across millions of homes. We owe Africa our best, and I pledge to work every day to build that Africa. As the broadcast ended, the hashtag #WeAreWeAfricaTheBest trended worldwide. The continent was awakening, and the promise had been made. The studio was hushed, every eye locked on Tinubu's face, raw, honest, transformed. This letter from Captain Traoré was not just words on paper, Tinubu said, voice steady but full of feeling. It was a mirror reflecting our failures and our hopes. He looked directly into the camera. For too long, we've been trapped in cycles of division and silence, but today, we stand at a crossroads. The nation watched as Tinubu wiped tears, then smiled softly. We must choose courage over comfort, unity over fear. The future of Africa depends on us. The live chat exploded with messages of hope and tears. Outside the studio, across Lagos and Ouagadougou, people knelt in prayer and song. Tinubu's heart was beating not as a politician, but as a brother to all Africans. The continent had never seen a moment so fragile, so powerful. Tinubu turned to the letter once more. Ibrahim's vision is clear, a united Africa, where our children do not suffer from hunger, war, or neglect. He paused, letting the words settle in. We owe our people truth, justice and peace. Tinubu's voice grew passionate. This is a call not just for leaders, but for every man, woman, and child who dreams of a better tomorrow. On the screen, images of African families, schools, and vibrant cities flashed. The dawn of this new Africa is not a dream. It is a promise, one written in tears, sacrifice, and unwavering hope. Across the continent, the seed of change had taken root, and for the first time in decades, millions dared to believe. With tears flowing freely, Tinubu closed the letter and faced the camera with fierce determination. To Ibrahim Traoré and to all of Africa, I make this solemn promise. We will not let this moment pass. We will rise together. He smiled, eyes shining. This is our Africa, the Africa we've been waiting for. The broadcast ended, but the impact was only beginning. If this story touched your heart as deeply as it touched mine, don't just watch silently. Like this video to honor the courage of leaders who dare to dream. Subscribe now to join a community that believes in hope and change. And most importantly, drop a comment below. Share your thoughts, your hopes, your tears. Because this story is not over. It lives in you, in all of us. Together, we will build the Africa we deserve. Thank you for watching, and welcome to the movement.